Just a reminder, we're recording these so that we can post them on our YouTube channel. So mute yourself if you're not speaking. I'll mute periodically. If you have a question during the session, please put it in the chat. I'll make sure Veronica sees them at the end. At question time, it's a little tough to keep up on questions while you're presenting. So welcome everyone to this day's Control+M Presents Plex session. We've been putting these sessions together to help all of you improve your knowledge and use of Plex modules. I'd like to welcome our Veronica Myers. She's a Plex accredited developer, which means she can write reports that run against live. Yay. So I've known Veronica for years. She's been a former client. She finally joined us last year. We're very, very excited to have her on staff. She's a huge supporter of everybody in the Plex community, and she's going to show you today different ways of getting data out of Plex, so you don't have to be a developer like her to be able to get Plex to give you the information that you need for things like one-offs. So take it away, Veronica.
Thank you, Patty, for that very warm welcome. I want to share with you guys today some of my favorite methods to get data from Plex if we're working with spreadsheets or other applications. There's my map. So this is what we're going to be covering today. And as you can see, there are multiple ways to do this. There's a misconception that you cannot export your financials out of Plex and into Excel. It's not true. I'm going to be showing you how to do just that. If for some reason you can't stay for the entire session, or if you can't come to the session, please let us know, because we put all of these out on our YouTube channel so you can watch anytime. Our YouTube channel link is found in everyone's Control+M's email and makes it easy to find. What do you need to know about getting information from Plex? As you know, Plex captures a lot of information, and sometimes it's right there on the screen and you'd like to do some analysis, but you don't want to have to retype everything. So how do I get data out of the Plex when I'm not writing a report or a query? My mother had a saying, but if I repeated it, then I could be in trouble with PETA. So let's just say that we'll be having many cats today, all alive and well, and they're doing something different to show you how to move data on a screen to where you can use it. Not all the methods are perfect, but they are a heck of a lot faster than writing it down. So let's start with financials. No retyping of number means no oops either. If you let Plex do all the heavy lifting of creating the document, and all you need to do is add some polish. Classic and UX both create HTML downloads. Both are multi-step processes. There's no easy button here, but it is very doable and very accessible to anybody who needs to look at this information. So we're going to navigate to a financial statement. We're going to search. We're going to print it, and we're going to open that download file in Excel. And a little formatting, and this is what you have. So on the left, you see the screen in Classic. On the right, you'll see the exact same data that I've now moved via an HTML file into Excel. Following a similar process for UX, only you don't print, but you use the keyboard command of Control+S. That saves the screen to an HTML document, and then you drag that document into Excel and do the same formatting on it. So let's show you how that works. I'm going to go over into Classic. I'm going to find my financial statement. I'm going to go ahead and calculate it. Say thank you and search. And there's my financial statement. Now I've got a very little financial statement, so this would not be a big thing to retype, but I'm betting that most of you have much bigger ones. So I'm going to hit print. I'm going to select my font size to the biggest I can. I'm going to hit submit. And what that does is opened it in a different window. At this point, I hit download. And here you can see it start to save that HTML file. I'm going to right click it and show it in my folder where it saved it into my downloads. And I'm going to open Excel. I'm now just going to drag that file into Excel. And Excel is going to take a couple of seconds because they're taking that HTML format and they're changing it to be something readable in Excel. So it takes a couple of seconds, but still a heck of a lot faster than typing. There's my document. I'm going to enable my editing, or lose my logo because it overwrote everything. And there is my format that I can see. I can continue to edit it here, or the other thing I can do is just take this piece of it, which is all I really want, and I'm going to put it into a new spreadsheet, paste it in special, and I'm just going to pick my values. And there's my exact same information, much cleaner, much easier to use. You notice though that that's a weird number. That's because that's actually the date. So by doing that cross in that format, your date turns into a number and you're going to have to remember to turn that back into a date format. The rest of it just as easy to be in Excel as always, a couple of commas and a couple of dollar signs. So I'm not going to save that, and I'm going to go back to Excel, or back to my Control+M. I'm going to do the exact same thing from UX. I'm going to navigate to my financial statement. I've already saved my information here, so I'm going to go ahead and search it. This is the exact same financial statement I just saw in Classic, but I can't print it. If I hit print from this point, it would just create a PDF file. So what I'm going to do is hit Control+S on the screen, and it's going to save that screen as a financial statement, change its name a bit. I'm going to hit save. And again, on the bottom left corner, it's created that HTML format that I want to use. I'm going to show it in my folder. There it is, back into Excel. And again, I'm going to drag it and drop it into my Excel file. It's going to do its thing about formatting. And you notice that now this has all of this top information, because that really captured absolutely everything on the screen. I'm going to scroll it all the way down to all that I care about. I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to move it to its own tab. And all this time I'm going to do is paste it. It's kept that date in there as it should. Done a little changing. I can take the zeros out, and I am now ready to work with that data as I need to. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go back to our presentation. That's how easy that was. So screen copies, we also call this screen scraping, because we're grabbing the information that is in front of us, and we're going to use it in another program. It's the same method I showed you for the financials. The difference is that you notice here in my screenshot, I have check marks. When I saved that and printed it to my HTML, I only took the check marks into my Excel spreadsheet. So if I wanted to see everything on that screen, if I was in Classic, I'd have to check all of my boxes. If you're using UX, and you print an email, it says it's going to do it in HTML, but it's kind of fibbing to you because it only sends a PDF file. So be sure to use the Control+S. And also in UX, Control+S is usually used to save a file. But on this screen, this method grabs everything on the screen, including all of the unchecked lines. These examples were done by selecting print on all or part of the screen. See the inventory adjustment? This is the same information. This UX is just a little prettier. It depends on where on the screen you start. So you notice there's no filters for inventory adjustment, and there is for the bank and reconciliation. So it means I started on the screen higher versus just in this grid section. And to remove these pesky hyperlinks, depending on your version of Excel, there's an edit function for remove hyperlink, and they make them disappear. Otherwise, you end up clicking on that, and it opens a session and tries to go back into Plex for you. So let's see what that looks like in Excel. I'm going to go back to Classic. I'm going to look for that bank reconciliation. There it is. I'm going to search. There's my check boxes. If I hit print and pull that screen over for you, you see it only has those 2 lines that are checked, doesn't show everything else. So now if I download this, it's created that HTML file. You notice that HTML file just says save to now, because it saves the same name over and over. So a lot of times when I show these in my folders, I rename them so I know which one I'm working with. I open my Excel, I drag her and drop her, gives it a second to format that HTML to non-HTML language, which sometimes takes more than a second. Enable my editing, move that pesky thing, and there is my bank reconciliation. Again, only with the check marks. If I do the exact same thing from UX, we navigate to a bank reconciliation. I'm going to search, and there's my screen. And again, the difference is I'm hitting Control+S here, which is actually printing that screen to an HTML format. I'm going to change its name. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Again, it's on the bottom left side of my screen. I'm going to open that in the folder. I'm going to open Excel. I'm going to drag her in. And it has all of that top verbiage, which of course we don't ever want. But there's my bank reconciliation. So at this point, I can drag it and drop it. I could just remove those top folders, however you want to manipulate it at this time. But it shows all the lines on that data. So let's go back to our presentation. So why do you want to know keyboard shortcuts? Well, has anybody heard of carpal tunnel? So I keep one hand on a mouse and I keep the other on the keyboard. So any shortcuts that I can use with my left hand are awesome. UX is a buffering display. And when you scroll it, it displays the next set of data as you get to it. So if you're needing a large amount of data and you want to capture it, remember that it doesn't load it to the screen all at the same time, so that can be a problem. On the next slides, I'll show you how some of the shortcuts that I use are. Control+A, when I said overzealous, it really does mean everything on the screen, just like we were seeing with that Control+S. But it can be very handy at times for large amount of data as you want to select. Remembering that there is that buffer limit in UX, so not everything can be selected. Control+C, Control+X, they move to a clipboard. I use it a lot when I'm using the same information on different screens and I don't want to retype it. You can combine those moves with the clipboard or with another clipboard application like Clipboard History, and you can permanently save the keystrokes that you use all the time. Or if you're reusing the same 10 things over and over, it gives you a little more breathing room than just having the last thing in the clipboard. Control+F, personally, I can't live without that one. If I'm looking through a whole lot of settings and I want to find just a certain word, I can use Control+F to look for it. By the way, it also has kind of a limit within it. So if it finds, say, 50 occurrences of that word, about halfway down the screen, it kind of stops looking for you. We have opened a case with Plex. It's out there. You guys can let us know about it and we can let you know if we get a resolution on it. And of course, as everyone knows, we have the famous Control+M. So let me show you how some of those shortcuts work. I'm going to go back into my inventory adjustment screen because I kind of like that one a lot. And basically, I like it because it gives me a whole lot of information. And it's very difficult to find it sometimes. So from this screen, what I can do is by Control+A, it selected everything on the screen along with all of this header information. So if I move this to a spreadsheet, I would get a lot of information I really don't want. If I don't want to select it, I just click anywhere else on the screen and it goes away. If I want to know just about this serial number, I highlighted it, I hit Control+C, and then Control+V, of course, pastes it into the screen. By that same method, if I do Control Z, it deletes the last thing I just entered. And of course, if I say, oops, I really did want that, Control Y puts it back. Come on, Control Y. Nope, it took it away and kept it. Darn me. Let's put her back. Oh. And I'm highlighting and I'm deleting, and I can do all of these things with all of these other, see, I took away the spaces, the Control Y put it back for me. So Control X cuts it so that I can move it into a different place for me, or I can just Control Z and undo what I just did. So if I'm looking for Control F, so I hit Control F, it brings up a box. In UX, it brings up a slightly different box, and I can show you that in a second. And if I type in the word rework, it shows me that there's 2 occurrences of that on that screen. And it will give me my down arrows, which allow me to search through the screen to find it. Again, Control S prints this screen to an HTML document. And of course, Control P prints it to a PDF file, which I have a set for a zebra printer and it doesn't look really good. If I change that format, look, now it prints, and how that would be how it would create that PDF format. A quick look at how that Control F looks in UX. I'm going to go to my inventory adjustments. I'm going to hit search and it's going to say nah. I'm going to Control F. I'm going to put in the same rework. And this time it found it 4 times. And it highlighted it across the grid versus just the word. So it's a little easier to find Control F in UX. So let's go back to our presentation. And let's talk about download buttons. So what is on the screen isn't what necessarily is in the download, because with the classic version Plex screens, you can alter that download button and show invisible columns. This is driven by the code behind the screen, so make sure you validate the records you see are the ones that you want. If the button isn't displayed, see if there is one. And on the Advanced tab down here, you can see where it's showing Include Invisible Columns. If the column you're looking for did not download, remember the column has to be in the code in the first place for it to show up. So now my button is enabled. This is what it looks like. It creates a CSV file that you can open in Excel, being careful of leading zeros in your columns. It creates its formatting in Excel from the first rows of data that it reads. If you don't know the cool way Excel has to transform a CSV file before you open it in Excel, shoot me an email and I can share with you. My email is at the bottom of each of these slides. Notice how the download file is bigger than the screen. These are the invisible columns. When you use this method, remember, download is a function of whoever wrote the code that created the report. The columns might be named different from what you're used to, or they might contain information that is not as you expect it. So let's see how that one looks. I'm going to go back in. There's my inventory adjustments in UX. UX doesn't do it the same way. So I'm going to go into Classic and I'm going to say, hey, I don't have a download button. I'm going to go to Vision Plex and say Design Mode. And I can see that there is a download button available, but it's not been enabled. I'm going to right click on it, Edit Properties, General. Visible is false. I'm going to turn that on to true. And I'm going to go over to this Advanced tab, and I can see there that my Include Invisible Columns is on and my download type is a CSV file. I'm going to go ahead and update it. I'm going to run. And now my download is available. I'm going to search for some data. There she is. I'm going to click download. And you'll notice it has created that CSV file on the bottom left side of my screen. And that's because I'm in Chrome. I'm going to show it in my folder. And there's my inventory adjustments. I'm going to just open it directly into Excel. And there is my entire inventory adjustment that I had on the other page. I'm going to make it really big so everyone can see it. And you notice how many columns there are. Now, what I was saying about the keys and everything being in these columns, this adjustment key and this part key, these are Plex information columns that are not data that you see. So a part key is not the same as a part number. A job key is not the job number. So if you look for this information and you think that that's what that is, you'll be very confused at why it won't line up. Here's my job number way over here. So it's job 199, but in Plex behind the scenes, they know it is that job key. I'm not going to save that because I would end up with too many. Let's go back to our presentation. And let's look at export functions. Export's wired to VisionPlex specific export data sources. These are usually supporting more rows than a download or the screen scraping can do. If you search in VisionPlex screen list where the layout is a standard export, you'll get a list of export screens. Not all screens have export as the layout, so the other way to do it is also look for export as the screen name, and not all screens have the word export in them. So if you use both methods, there's a good chance you can find all of the export screens that are out there to be used. In Classic, there's approximately 235 screens that are explicit export screens. In UX, the export function has changed and it's an action that is available on the screen. After you've done your search, you'll see the hyperlink there. And in UX, you can save this as a CSV file or an Excel or a JSON or HTML file, unlike Classic, where you only have a choice of a CSV file. So it's enabled the same way as the download. So there's my export button, but it's only going to work if an export report has been linked to it. So here's my inventory adjustment screen. There's my export button. When I click this button, it's going to open this whole new report called Inventory Adjustment Report Export. It kept the same search parameters as was in my original request. I would click export here and it would export it based off of this information. In UX, you notice there's no download button. It's all supported as this export as. Does the exact same thing. I filter, I search, I have a list. That list is then downloaded into an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file or a JSON or an HTML because it's UX. And it gives me all of those invisible columns automatically. So where in Classic I had to ask for them, in UX they were already available for me. So let's go into UX and Classic and see how these roll. So there's my inventory adjustment report. I'm going to click the word export. There it goes to that inventory adjustment report export. Same filters I had before. I'm going to click export. And it's odd because it asks for template information. You just say new template, which means that I could download it or export it into an existing copy. I'm just going to create a new one. It's created that Excel file for me on the bottom left side. I'm clicking it, it's opening, and there's the exact same file that I had. I'm going to close all of these, and I'm going to show you the VisionPlex screen list and explain to you. So if I search for export, I see a whole mess of files, all of which have the word export in them. Most of them have that standard export layout, but some of them have a standard grid. If I do that the opposite way and say, give me a layout that is a standard export and hit search, you'll notice that I now have things like the consolidated trial balance data extract, and I have a cross PCN cash receipt payer detail. You wouldn't have found these if you were just searching for export. So let's run the same thing from UX. I'm going to scroll all the way back up. Now that I've filtered, searched, and selected my data, clear my list down there, I'm going to hit export as. And there's my choice to export it to CSV or an Excel file. I'm going to export it directly to Excel. It's created that file in the bottom left. I'm going to double click it, and it's going to open Excel for me and load the format in there already. Again, just a little widening of the columns, and it's all there. And it's got all of the same columns that you saw in Classic. So it's running the same code. It's pretty cool that way. So let's go back to our presentation. And let's talk about PDF conversion tools. So anytime you print, it can become a PDF. And with the right software, you can convert it into an Excel or Word or some other format file. Now, some free converters only save images and not editable files, as well as there's limits on how many a day you can use or how many times you can use it. In big words, we don't warranty or guarantee any PDF converter, so use these at your own risk. Busy screens with lots of lines cause more failures when it's trying to convert them. I've tried a couple of different applications and tested the conversion process, and I found some to work better than others in terms of formatting. I personally have the Adobe converter, and I use it. Notice that it kept the colors and the formatting, and it removed the hyperlinks, but it did repeat the page header because the PDF was a 2-page printout to start with. So here's my header, and here's my header repeated. So let's see how one of those work. That's actually really fun. So I'm going to go into Classic. I'm going to say, what the heck? Let's go into UX because it's prettier. I like UX, everybody. It's a lot of fun. There's my customer shipping screen. So normally customer shipping, it doesn't have a export button. You know, I could print it and screen scrape it and remove hyperlinks. This kind of makes it easy. So I'm going to take this. All I'm going to do is hit the word print. That, of course, is going to create my PDF file. I'm going to download it, and there it is on my bottom left. I'm going to open my Adobe Acrobat, and there's my PDF file. I'm going to highlight it and export it. It's going to say, hey, how would you like me to export this? I'm saying a spreadsheet would be fine. Thank you for asking. Export. Yeah, that's a good spot for it. And there it is, already converted. I'm going to save it. It's going to save it and open it for me. And there is my converted PDF to an Excel spreadsheet. Again, there's my headers that have repeated. Very easy to just highlight them and remove them. And then I have a spreadsheet that I can work with. Let's go back to our presentation. So it's okay to be creative, and you can combine any of these methods to make them work for you. I've got my favorites that I use over and over, and they're second nature, but you might use them differently. Now I'm going to ask everyone on the call for hints. What do you do that I might learn about?
Don't forget to unmute yourself if you have questions or comments. Veronica, Ross asked if you can change the CSV to an XLSX on the VP screen. download button?
The
Did you show how to change that format?
its choice is very limited, but yes, let me go back in.
Okay, thanks. That was a new thing I learned. I don't know if everyone saw in the chat, but when Veronica showed me this, I was blown away.
So let me go back to my friend by inventory adjustment report, back into my VisionPlex design mode. And I know what he's talking about. So I'm going to go to my download button here. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to back, just give me the general. When I hit advanced,
Yeah.
What he noticed was that download type is CSV. It
Yeah.
says Excel.
Yeah.
And you can't update it. And I've had iffy accuracy with this one, just so that. So if I do go ahead and download it. Oh, it says, yeah, download what, right? Let's go back.
I did this when I haven't been in Classic for 2 years, but when I was doing this in Classic, I did do that. That's why I asked.
Yes, and see there it created the Excel file for you. Yep. And then if I open it in Excel, if it tells me the right one, there it is. Okay, so yes, if it's available, you can change the download from a CSV to an Excel.
Veronica, the fine folks at Wanco asked if you can link export reports to the export button on VP screens when the button isn't already linked. And I just reminded them, say it only does something if an export routine is already written, but the question would have to be begged then if you wrote an export button, could you link up something you wrote to that export button? And I don't want to put you on the spot because I don't know the answer, but if you know the answer, please share. If you don't, then we'll just get some emails that we want for you to email back to so that you can tell them. So they want to know if there's no export routine, can you wire up that green export button to do something that you have built?
Yes, I can. And so what I would do is build 2 different screens. One that would then call the export screen.
Great, thanks. I'm sure you guys, if you want any more information on there, just email Veronica directly. Her email's on the bottom of all of her slides.
Let me go back to the PowerPoint so people can see it.
Yeah, let them flood your inbox, kiddo.
Thanks.
All right, I'm not seeing any more questions, although if you have any, shove them in the chat. Veronica, if you want to hit that last slide, please.
I can.
Beautiful. Thanks, great job today, by the way. I sure appreciate everything you showed. I actually learned a few things in this presentation between delivery and practice, like that download that you asked about, Russ. So thanks again, Veronica. For those of you who don't know, Jen Berry joined our team last week. If you're a food and bev customer, you for sure know her. She's going to debut on September 1st, showing how to do a burst report in IntelliPlex. Jill's going to be sending out invites next week, and we sure hope you can join us. To get ready for this session, you might want to watch a recording of Veronica's IntelliPlex session that she presented back in May, which you can find on our YouTube channel. Speaking of which, please take a few moments to watch those sessions and give us a thumbs up if you have a minute. We like kudos as much as anybody else. And thanks for joining us today, and stay safe and healthy, everybody. Take care.